The story isn't over yet. Right now, we need to discuss what's happening in China first. That's the most important factor, front and center. The second thing is coal's comeback. We can see what has happened over the last little while with the power issues, outages, and so much more. I will give you some very important updates. And the third thing is about Zillow. You saw this company coming in and buying up houses left, right, and center, but something big has changed. All of that and more. Let's go. So let's start right here. China GDP disappoints. Third quarter growth slows to 4.9%. When was the last time you heard of China growth being below 5%? Doesn't happen too often. Okay, you're seeing since entering the third quarter, domestic and overseas risks and challenges have increased. That's for sure, but it's all around the world. There is a persistent slowdown. You see the breakdown, the GDP, industrial production, retail sales, fixed asset investment, property investment, and also the jobless rate all declining, going down at a rate in which they told us this would not happen. But let's look at this that I've been covering in so many different videos. You've seen it. Defaults loom over more property developers as China reassures investors on Evergrande. And what do we know about all of these governments, about all of the media? Wherever you see reassurance, that's where the biggest worries are. All eyes will be on Chinese real estate developer CITIC Holdings, which warned last week that it will not likely to repay the offshore bonds worth $250 million due on Monday. I will give you an update as soon as I can on that, all right? On Friday, another developer, China Properties Group, said it had defaulted on $226 million worth of notes. Rating agencies issued a fresh round of downgrades on Chinese property firms last week. It comes as investors remain in limbo and the uncertainty of the fate of the heavily indebted Evergrande. This is a problem not just for Evergrande. We got to stop getting out of that. I see very uninformed individuals suggesting, oh, don't worry, Evergrande's going to be fine. It's the entire property sector. It is the financial system. And then we just keep going out and out and out from there. They get into what was covered in the point forms. We start scrolling down. We're talking about Fantasia, as I covered in previous videos. Don't worry because the economy is doing well. Yeah. Look, you could see here, ratings downgrades. They mention the name of these companies. All the links will be down in the description as always, by the way. Modern Land, Greenland Holding. But look, China's properties are struggling. The Evergrande debacle has probably given homebuyers concerns about whether developers will honor the pre-sale commitments. What has happened here? There's 1,300 or 1,500 plus properties that haven't been finished yet. They say they'll make them whole, but at least for the offshore bondholders, they haven't made them whole. And as of this week, I believe it's going to come up. Are they going to actually pay back? Doesn't seem like that's the case. So will we get first the offshore people not getting their money back and then we go onshore too? What about the actual people who bought into the properties? This is going to extend further and further, at least for the time being. Who knows what's going to change in the coming days, but I will give you all the updates you need. If you hit that thumbs up button, you are then more likely to see my videos come up in your recommended. So hit that button and it's right down there. China's warning to Evergrande was aimed at Fantasia too. The central bank wants to prevent what mainland bond investors call eloping, indebted companies refusing to pay up. So we go a little bit further in here, a little bit of a funny image if you want to check that out. But take a look. Bond investors look at two things: a company's ability to pay and its willingness to pay. The former is accounting and pure business, while the latter is a matter of pure faith. They do discuss Evergrande and so on. They say that it's controllable, that's code for no bailouts, and it disappointed investors hoping for one. The central bank urged real estate developers and their shareholders to fulfill their debt obligations. This is something that you should check out, okay? I can't get into all of this. I always cover way too much data, and I'm actually considering to split up my videos so that I can dig a little deeper, but that might require 2 videos a day, totally separate point. Chinese high yield dollar bonds worst sell-off in a decade was not caused by Evergrande but by Fantasia, a small-ish developer who refused to repay. Look, I told you what was going on. I told you this is a crisis, and will they be able to contain it? I don't know. But what I can tell you is that this is worse than was initially expected to be when they were discussing it, let's say 2 months ago. It was there. It was kind of, you got some problems in the property sector. No. It is worse than what they were saying. And now we're starting to really feel it. Fantasia's failure to make $206 million bond repayment sent the market tumbling. It had the money to pay, or at least gave the impression, but chose not to. How does that sound? Really, think about it. They had the ability. They weren't necessarily fully bankrupt or anything, but they didn't pay back. Okay, they're getting into what the People's Bank of China, the central bank, had done. Lots of details in here. But again, you've got to check it out, and I will give you updates as we go through it. China's property and energy crisis deliver blow to GDP growth. So I'm bringing this together. You could see what has happened. This just shows you that what we are seeing here is a global phenomenon. The slowdown, the power crisis, the supply chains, all of this is adding up. Whether you're going to see a catalyst come from China, or whether that's going to come from the United States or perhaps Europe, we've got problems all around the world today, and they need to be highlighted. They need to be brought to the forefront. So here's just showing you the GDP. Quite frankly, the GDP is a heavily manipulated statistic in the first place. But look, retail sales pick up slightly, just barely. Compared to where we were a little while ago. You could see over the years, though, if you could see on that chart, it might be a little difficult. It's been slowing down year after year after year on average. Forget about 2021. That's an odd circumstance, but it's been declining. Why? Because you can't run on stimulus all the time. You can't run on fumes. You cannot rely on this consistent and never-ending consumption without some periods of deflation or downward movements along the way. Okay? They're just talking about this, how they refrained from injecting liquidity into the financial system. But they had been doing that previously. Okay? They did pump a lot of money in. Remember that. The wait begins. This is talking about the container ships waiting. That's that pink line. And it is incredible. Of course, you have got some serious issues. Look, faced with the power crisis, China may have little choice but to ramp up coal consumption. This is something that I have been discussing for quite some time, and it's going to connect us into our next point. They had said that we're going to clean up our act, we're going to get rid of the coal, we're going to go to these different cleaner energies. And then what happened? Well, suddenly you didn't have that power that you needed. They had to start looking elsewhere. They've got their little tit for tat with Australia. That presented itself with another problem altogether. But this is just something that I think is really key to understand, because you are seeing some major changes. Doing away with coal at the same time the demand is surging. You've got a supply-demand fundamental problem that cannot be resolved overnight. UK coal power output rises to 1 month high on low wind. This is the way we have to understand, there's just a factor here of low wind, and suddenly the UK doesn't have enough power. And what do? They have to go back to coal. You cannot rely on something like this and just simply do away with it without another means of accessing something so important like energy. Drax could delay retirement of UK coal plants if requested. Generators have been called back into action to help plug the energy supply gap. This is important. Let me know where you are. What is the energy situation? How has it been unfolding? Put it in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going. This is one of the most critical factors today. China's economy continues to slow down despite mega investment, injections of capital coming from every single direction. There is an energy crisis plus the supply chain problems that are creating some serious headwinds for the economy right now. people must begin some serious, major preparations to hedge against inflation, whether that is buying certain types of food today to lock in the price, or whether that is agreeing with your power company to say, I want to lock this price in today. Do what you can today, because we know tomorrow things are going to become more expensive. Look, if you're not an insider, you've got to be. Why? Because I can get around the censorship and all of what they're trying to do to this channel and so many others. 5 days a week, I will email you the video of the day. It is available right here at this card or at themoneygps.com. Also, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button to support this channel. It's pretty easy. Right down there, click that one button. It would be more likely to end up in your recommended, and of course, helps to support the channel in general. That's it. If you haven't seen this video yet regarding China, you definitely want to check it out. A lot of detail. Click it and I'll see you there.